Hello, adventurers. My name is Jason Portizo, and today I am joined once again by Mr. Jim Crocker.
Hey.
And Greg Genovis.
Hello.
Josie is still away. We wish her a speedy recovery from her stupid hurt wrist.
It's real dumb.
She'll be fine. I mean, she's gonna live, but still taking time off. Whatever. It's Friday. It is RPG Horror Story Day. And if I'm looking at the chore wheel, it looks like it might be Greg's turn this week.
I think we should respin that.
All right, let's just spin that again. And
it's still Greg.
Damn it.
Keeps coming up Greg.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Keeps coming up Greg.
All
the
right,
wheel just says Greg 4 times.
Well, I don't have access to the wheel.
We just kind of hang on. It's off screen here. So if you're watching on YouTube, just trust me that there's definitely a wheel here.
Yeah, for sure.
Greg, read me a story.
All right. How about player treats my character's quirk as a, quote, problem to solve, unquote.
Define quirk. And I'm sure you're about to, but...
Yeah. This is brought to us by Reddit user TooFast_TooFurious123.
Oh, good. It's about family.
Yeah.
Good family story.
Always good.
All right.
So this is an old story from 3, maybe 4 years ago, so I may not remember all the details. First, I have to tell you a little about my character in this campaign. I was playing a female human fighter, Cassandra, because that was her name, had this little quirk. She was trying to avoid showing her face as much as was possible. A bit like in Mandalorian, but less extreme. She was usually taking off her mask only to eat, sleep, or when she was taking a bath. Sometimes she was taking the mask off when she was away from any public area, but that too was very rare. She was also very defensive about it and didn't let anyone take her mask off. She had a reason for that. In her past, she was a warden, a member of an independent order of knights. Wardens recognized no higher authority and did not bow before any kings or lords. Their job was to keep peace and bring justice. Covering their faces was one of the traditions of this order. Knights were to be anonymous and nameless, faceless confidants of justice. Even though this order had fallen apart over 20 years ago, Cassandra was still holding to those traditions. And this is where Kat and her character, tiefling cleric named Izzy, come in. Kat took a completely different approach in our game. I preferred more serious and realistic approach. Her approach was more or less, even though our characters know each other for only 2 days, you are all like family to my character, and she will gladly help you solve all of your problems, which in my opinion is not a problem by itself. Very helpful and naive people happen to be in the world, so I could believe that her character was like that. The problem was the fact that for some reason, Kat and her character decided that the fact that my character is quiet, calm, and hides her face for most of the time, it is a problem or trauma that needs to be solved, or something like that. So basically, beginning from session 2 or 3, a fairly long series of attempts began to remove the helmet from my character's face. Sometimes Izzy was trying to do it by herself. Sometimes she tries to persuade Cassandra to do so. It was okay at first. I was even trying to talk her out of the idea, explaining that it's a tradition between wardens, that Cassandra knows many wardens that were not able to recognize each other's faces because they were identified by their helmets and markings on them. She herself had a hard time remembering her mentor's face, but she remembers every scratch on his helmet. Sadly, this did not convince Izzy. It very, very quickly became annoying. Almost every session, 1 or 2 times, Izzy accosted my character about her helmet. There were even cases that she tried to take the helmet away from my character when she was not wearing it. Once, Kat even asked our DM if she could roll for persuasion to convince my character to take off the helmet in the middle of the busy town. Luckily, our DM listened to me and said that she could not do it. I don't really know how long this all took. With time, Kat started asking me about it outside the game, and to this day, I think she was clearly impatient. Sometimes she was evidently irritated when her nice and friendly attempts were unsuccessful. It was around this time that I found out that Kat's character found my Cassandra attractive, despite the fact that she had seen her face only a few times, and 90% of the time she was completely covered with a thick plate, chainmail, and a gameson. It might not be that important for the story, but I believe it could be one of the reasons she was trying to interact with my character the most and was annoyed when my character was not interested in her character. Sounds like that solved the mystery for that. The story ended quite abruptly. During one of our visits to the local tavern, our characters decided to eat dinner. Cassandra announced that she would eat afterwards because she did not want to take off the helmet in such a crowded place. Then Kat came up with the brilliant idea while everyone was busy with their own affairs. She described how her character, Izzy, sneaks up on Cassandra from behind, grabs her helmet, and tries to take it off. I was obviously not happy with it and started to protest. So DM made us roll the dice. I don't remember if it was a dex roll or something else. Fortunately, I was able to roll higher. Cassandra had managed to keep Izzy from taking her helmet off. Then I decided that both I and my character have had enough of it, and Cassandra tries to hit Izzy. I rolled my dice, and I succeeded. This is the moment when drama began. Not in the game.
Spoiler.
Yeah.
Spoiler. That is actually not the moment when the drama began.
No. It sounds like
when the drama escalated.
Yes. The drama has been happening for a while.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not in the game, but outside of the game. Kat just exploded with anger. She acted like I punched her, not her imaginary character. There was a lot of screaming and arguing that basically goes down to Kat saying my character is ungrateful and doesn't let anyone help her, and me explaining to her that Cassandra doesn't need help with anything, and Izzy is not her friend, because from the first day they knew each other, she's trying to convince her to break her traditions. We ended our session there, and for the next 3 or 4 weeks, we didn't even consider going back to it. But luckily, at the end, we managed to get our group back together and continued playing. Whew.
So one of the questions was like, we did a roll. I forget what kind of roll it was. The 2 correct answers are that, there's a couple of kind of rolls that could have been. That could have been sleight of hand. That could have been contested strength. It probably should have been initiative.
Yeah.
That's the kind of roll you should be doing when someone grabs the other one's helmet.
Mm-hmm. That is 100% trying to take agency away from another person's character.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like the punch didn't start the PvP.
No.
The trying to, and I'm just trying to imagine, like, if you had played a game where you had just explicitly come out and called that helmet that you wear all the time, like, a yarmulke or a hijab or, or any like other kind of, like traditional religious or cultural headwear that somebody was wearing.
To the Mandalorians,
in this case,
that's what it was.
Yeah,
exactly. In this case, it was fictional, but like this is another one of those horror stories that sounds like it's a horror story of conflict between 2 players, but really what that is a DM just completely falling down on the job on that, as far as consent and safety goes, with one of the players saying, look, this is not a thing I want to have litigated by dice.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And the DM, not stepping up to make sure that's how that happens.
This little back and forth was cute for a while, but it is long since run its course.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I can easily see this being not about a helmet, about other articles of clothing. I'm sure tables across the fucking world have dealt with something like that, where it's just like clearly one player is not getting the hint that this is not what the other one wants to do.
Sure. But for the story, it is about a helmet. Yeah. It's not quite that extreme, but it is still like, players got a thing. Let them have a thing.
Yeah.
And and if it becomes like a cute back and forth for a couple of sessions, that's one thing. But like, there's a point where like you as a player have to realize when it goes too far, and the DM has to realize when it goes too far and stop it from escalating even further. Because then we get into PvP, and then we get into people who don't want to play your game anymore.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and like, if you want to be like the cool, helpful, I'm a friend to your character type of, like gregarious buddy, you don't try to solve their problem that they tell you is not a problem. You go out of your way to be happy about supporting them when other people give them crap about that. Like when you come into a new village and somebody says, what's with the helmet and why won't she take it off? If you're a good friend, then you can explain it and say, oh yeah, no, she doesn't buzz. She's great. You should, and you can intervene and say, she's awesome. Don't worry about the fact that she, has that helmet on all the time. You spend a little time with her and, you'll love her as much as I do, that kind of thing. That's the right way to go about that.
So, Ixnay on the helmet, hey. Yeah. And it's hilarious and you move on,
Yeah.
It's like, trust me, we've tried.
Yeah.
Bad hair day. Like there's so many way funnier ways you could have done this.
Well, and it's also, and like one of the things that they talked about in there that I thought was really fascinating, that shows that this player is not just doing it in terms of like it's not like a lone wolf, I don't want anyone to ever see my face so I don't have to interact with people kind of thing. But this idea that like in this culture, like she doesn't know what her mentor's, scare quotes, real face looks like, but she recognized, like she said, like every nick in the helmet and, sure, little dent and all that kind of stuff, the way that they would recognize, the features of another, of someone's face that they were intimate with otherwise. So
in this culture, that is a face. And that's good character.
Yeah.
Shame.
A damn shame.
Shame.
I'm astonished that game eventually came back together. And what I would love to know, like, I would love a follow-up from this person. Like,
let me double check.
Did this get resolved? Did the DM get their shit together and get more on board with consent and safety stuff? Or did they just kind of like, agree to let it ride and like pretend that it never happened? I'm like, this is one of those ones I want to follow up on.
Yeah, for sure. It's only 3 hours ago. I'm not seeing any comments from the OP. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think after 3 hours there's going to be a lot, but this is one I'm going to check the link on and maybe jump on there and say, hey, what's the deal? Did you guys, did you put anything in place to make sure this won't happen again? When you restarted that game? I'm real curious about that. Right. Maybe we can do a follow-up or something in some future episode.
Yeah, well, the link is going to be in the show notes. So if there is a follow-up and if they kept up on their comments, then you can go ahead and click that link and see if the OP has gotten there since we did the episode. Yeah, I think we're just going to call it here because that's...
Yeah, I mean, the
what
lesson there is that,
say about this?
PvP starts as soon as somebody won't take no for an answer. When in character interaction, it's like it doesn't have to escalate to the point where people are rolling initiative against each other. If somebody says cut it out and the other person says no, that's kind of you're starting to edge into PvP stuff just right there, and pay attention to that.
Yeah. All right. Greg, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Guys, check us out, CurmudgeonsandDragons.com. All of our links are on there. We'll have another horror story next week.
You bet.
Right. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to Curmudgeons and Dragons. Please share this with your favorite adventurers. Leave a review on Apple and follow us on social media. All links can be found at CurmudgeonsandDragons.com. Practice safe adventuring, my friends.
This has been a JTP Audio podcast. Thanks for listening.